Well, Steve Jobs once said, "I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful is pure perseverance." For over 2 decades, Young Turks has captured the journeys of thousands of entrepreneurs, and what we've seen from close quarters is the entrepreneurial journey is a tough one that involves navigating uncertainties, learning from failures, and continuously adapting to the ever-evolving technological landscape of our times. Each year, we celebrate the relentless pursuit of entrepreneurial vision and excellence and crown emerging companies at the CNBC-TV18 India Business Leader Awards. Let me start by introducing the Young Turk of the Year. This fintech giant serves 2 out of 3 Indians, that's 500 million users. As the market leader in UPI payments, the platform processes 5 billion digital transactions every single month and enables over 35 million merchants. Yes, I am talking about PhonePe. For the Walmart-backed company, 2023 has been a year of new beginnings with a greater vision. Building on top of payments, PhonePe has diversified into hyperlocal commerce, insurance, stockbroking, lending, wealth management, and has even launched a challenger app to the app of all apps, Google Play Store. Now let's talk about CNBC-TV18 IBLA's Young Turk Startup of the Year. Electrifying the landscape of urban mobility with a fleet of EV cabs, this startup is changing the way that we move. Founded just 4 years ago, it has completed more than 10 million rides, covering 325 million kilometers, saving over 21,000 tons of CO2 emissions. A revolution on wheels, the Young Turk Startup of the Year is BluSmart, and it's racing towards a greener future and aims to double its fleet to 10,000 electric cars by March 2024. Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Young Turks, India's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shereen Bhan, and joining us today on the program, Sameer Nigam, the founder and CEO at PhonePe, and Anmol, Jaggi, the co-founder and CEO of BluSmart. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the show, and congratulations once again on your win at the India Business Leader Awards. Sameer, let me start by asking you, if 2022 was a year defined by relocation as well as separation, 2023 is really, as we pointed out, a year of new beginnings for you. As you venture into new verticals, as you venture into new businesses, what are you most anxious about?
First of all, thanks for having me here, Shereen, and thanks so much for the recognition. I think, as you correctly pointed out, 2022 was a lot of just corporate stuff, restructuring, spinning out, moving domicile. So this year's been exhilarating. So many different launches, so many new sectors. So as a founder, it's been a extremely sort of fun-filled year. But I think you put it up on the screen, when you have 6 or 7 big launches in the same year, it's also a bit unnerving. I think we're just trying to make sure that we sort of prepare as an organization, we have the right leadership team in place, we have the focus to win in multiple sectors. But I think we have a lot of new toys, so I'm excited. I'm very excited about the future.
Yeah, I would imagine the excitement is there, and it would perhaps be plenty given the fact that you are entering into so many new spaces. But I want to address that issue that you spoke of, and that's why I started by asking you about what you're anxious about. Because the problem is not the start. The problem is scaling up. In your case, on the payment side, you've scaled up significantly. We gave the numbers, record-breaking numbers, just about every single day that PhonePe is clocking. But as you enter these new spaces where you are going to be the challenger, how do you gear yourself? How do you prepare yourself for battle?
So I think there's a couple of things to note. So you mentioned wealth management. We've actually been selling mutual funds and perhaps about 20% plus of the SIP market for the last 3 or 4 years. People just don't know that about us because the payments business sort of dwarfs everything else. We've been in the insurance market for about 3 years distributing products. We just started advertising aggressively and entered health insurance this year. But we've been doing motor for 2 or 3 years. I think the other thing that gives us some comfort is the fact that there's one very simple thing that's sort of binding all of these plays. Whether it's insurance, we're broking. Whether it's wealth, it's either SIPs or stock broking. On lending, again, we're not a balance sheet lender. We're not an NBFC. We're a platform. Payments is a platform. App Store is a platform. The one thing you'll find as a universal sort of leveling factor is that tech's at the center of what we do. We're not into manufacturing financial services. Even with PIN code and hyperlocal shopping, it's very asset light. So we're not sitting on inventory, building supply chain or logistics. We're digitally connecting parties. So I think the playbook, there is a lot of similarity. Second, we have a very tenured leadership team. A lot of us at the top have been together for more than a decade. This is our second or third tango together. My co-founders and I have been working together for 2.5 decades. So I think there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of understanding, which allows you to actually surface problems much more comfortably than larger orgs typically do. So I think we problem solve fast.
Well, I have to agree with you. If you are going to do the rodeo, then it's better to have the same crew that that you do the rodeo with. And as you said, you've been around the block a few times, so that certainly does help. But, I want to go back to something that you just said and link it back to what you told me when we last spoke. You had said that you're not looking at getting into getting a banking license. You don't want to manufacture financial products because that is not your forte. So this whole talk and speculation around consumer lending in 2024. What do we make of that?
So we've already entered merchant lending. Again, we're distributing with NBFC partners. We're distributing with banking partners soon on the merchant side. On the consumer side, again, we're going to be distributing consumer loans. We're going to be distributing possibly EMI products, credit cards, virtual credit on UPI. But all of this is again on the back of partnerships. So we are what's being called an LSP now, a lending service platform. We're not getting into balance sheet. I think with the user base and the merchant base we have in the country, 500 million on one side, 36, 37 million on the other side, I think it almost be tragic not to actually open up that traffic fire hose to all the manufacturers who do their job brilliantly. I think we might work on data models with partners. We might try and help them with better targeting. But at the end of the day, banking is a very different business than distributing sort of any digital products digitally. So I think we want to focus on what we are good at.
Focus on what we're good at. Let me bring Anmol into the conversation. Anmol, once again, congratulations to you and the team at BluSmart for winning the Young Turks Startup of the Year award. And I want to start by asking you, Anmol, what has been the big learning, the big lesson on what not to do? Because again, as I pointed out, you're the challenger in the market and you're playing in a very niche market at this point in time because you are in electric vehicle mobility up against the now Olas and Ubers who are getting into this space. What's been the big lesson on what not to do?
Thank you, ma'am. And thanks a lot for awarding us the Young Startup of the Year. I think what we have learned is not to just keep it very simple, not make it complex. People are in the mobility service just need their cabs to arrive on time. They need clean cars without cancellations, without surge prices. So just keep it extremely simple, and there is no need to over diversify, or there is no need to do too many things. If you can just have your core product do great, at least at our scale and size, it is that much is good enough to attract many customers and get them onto the platform. So from our perspective, we just want the core ride-hailing product to go absolutely on track. We just want that to be very successful and just keep ensuring that a lot of customers keep riding with us and they get almost a 5-star service that we are proud of having. So our learning is just been focus on very core strengths. I think at our age of the business, we just need to focus on them.
Well, and that's what we heard there from Sameer as well, that focus on what you know and do well. And that clearly seems to be the mantra for success. But Anmol, let's talk about scaling up. And when we last spoke, you had, at the India Business Leader Awards, you talked about being able to double your fleet by 2024, by March 2024. So take me through the roadmap from here to then on how you intend to go about this, how much is already done in terms of putting the nuts and bolts in place to be able to double fleet?
So we have three moving parts in our business: the fleet, the driver partners, and the charging infrastructure. We do not assume the moving part to be our customers, because customers mobility is a service which is in great demand and India is short of it. So there are many customers who want the service. So customers is not a constraint. The constraint is on three elements of fleet, charging infrastructure, and driver partners. On the fleet side, now that there is no more electronic shortage, etc., which is there, and a lot of OEMs have started to manufacture electric vehicles, we are no longer seeing a constraint over there. On the driver partners, because of our model of the asset ownership not being with the driver partner and that being with the company, which is BluSmart, we have more than enough driver partners to come in. The only constraint that we are critically facing is the lack of charging infrastructure. And BluSmart is building a lot of charging infrastructure for itself and for others, whereas we need to collaborate more and we need to build out for India a huge amount of charging infrastructure which is needed. So to go from currently about 5,500 cars we have to 10, 11,000 cars in the next 7, 8 months, what is needed for us is only the single-minded focus on continuously building charging infrastructure. I think if we can build out that charging infrastructure, the driver partners, customers, or the fleet will not be a problem. It is now only a game of how soon and how large can the charging infrastructure in the country be.
Yes, that I would imagine continues to be a key constraint, not just for companies like yours, but many others. But, you know, if I were to take what we were discussing with Sameer to you as well, Anmol, you know, you are through group companies, etc., in the charging space. What about in the EV space? Is that an aspiration that you are considering?
So just for clarification, ma'am, Blue Charge, which is a 100% owned subsidiary of BluSmart Mobility, that is building out the charging infrastructure, and through the other owned company, which is my own, which is the second company, which is a listed company called Gensol Engineering. We are into manufacturing of EV vehicles and into leasing of EV vehicles. So, of course, we believe as a family that electric mobility is going to be big, and we want to have, and the whole space is open up for grabs. And in various entities which can core focus on the respective areas, we are focusing on building the complete ecosystem.
So building up the complete ecosystem. Sameer, let me come back to you now and let's talk about the competitive landscape and how you intend to take on the competition. You know, there isn't much that you need to do, at least on the payment side at this point in time, given the advantage and the lead that you have. But in the new verticals that you are getting into, albeit, as you pointed out, you've been around even in those spaces for the last few years, what will be the differentiating lever that you intend to deploy outside of the tech platform and outside of the tech strength?
I think the answer is slightly different for each of them. Lending and insurance, the distribution's on the PhonePe app. So I think that's for both those businesses, they already have a large user base that they can tap into. So clearly for share market, PIN code, and the Indus App Store, first problem statement is they're going to have to actually build a brand identity and define the product value proposition. So they have a higher order challenge to sort of solve for. I think with PIN code, much like with UPI, there's more uncertainty than there's certainty in terms of whether the network participants will really sort of do what's required to make a seamless e-commerce experience happen without actually controlling the logistics, the packaging, the inventory, and all of that stuff, right? I mean, that's the opportunity. I think the niche we hope to carve out, as the name suggests, is we believe that so much of grocery and food and pharma is just naturally better suited to the hyperlocal environment at the PIN code level. Because the distribution supply chains, whether it's for food, produce, it's already available in ample supply locally. The problem is outside of limited like WhatsApp groups, you don't know what's available in the shop until you call and order. Making that experience sort of shift to a catalog-based order where I can actually just order. If I could do with my local grocer what I can do on a big basket, you've solved a major dynamic problem, right? Because I think people increasingly want to control the experience. They want to control when the delivery happens. But all of those pieces can come together through a platform as well today. I think that's the promise we are hoping to deliver on. Seamless, slotted, timely delivery. from your neighborhood store. On the App Store side, we'll reveal more as we go along, but I think that's the area, App Store, Play Store. These are what I call the road toll services that have been applied about 15 years ago. The innovation's been zero. If you're the only one collecting toll tags, your need to actually solve for either developers or consumers is near zero.
Yeah.
Whether it's the localization of content, whether it's the localization of recommendations to what you want, what you need, I think there's so much more to be done. And I often cite this example. There are thousands of app developers in India. We all operate in a mobile-first, data-first world, not a laptop broadband-based world. For some peculiar reason, across 700 million devices, all my app updates happen only if I'm on Wi-Fi on an automated basis. Your auto updates only happen on Wi-Fi. Now that's such a US-centric, circa like 2007-centric worldview. It tells you how neglected the market is. So when you put out a new app or I put out a new app version, users don't see it unless they actively go and update apps. But for service providers, for app developers, you want your new features out to the entire population on day zero. It's fixing those very basic things one by one. And I think it's going to be a long haul. One, because the competition is fierce, as you can imagine, but also because when people are used to a certain way of transacting or a certain way of buying things, and you're shifting the goalposts, you're trying to deliver a completely different sort of solution. Early trials are hard. They're actually harder than in a virgin landscape where there's nothing of its kind. UPI had a demon moment. We'll have to see what the ONDC demon moment looks like. We'll have to see what a Indus App Store demon moment looks like.
Well, I don't know. I hope we don't have anything as disruptive as the demon moment to ensure that ONDC gets its big break. But we'll have to wait to see. We'll have to wait to see how that pans out. But, you know, speaking of the long haul, Sameer, let's talk about the road to profitability. And revenue up 77% year on year at 2,914 crores. When do you hope to be able to get to profitability? And you know, this relocation, one would imagine, was a precursor to an eventual IPO. What is the broad timeline that you have in mind?
So I think those two statements are interlinked, or questions are interlinked. I think moving to India was just putting sort of a stake in the ground saying that we're going to list in India. I think the listing, all things being in place, is inevitable. I think a company our size should aspire to actually be governed in the public markets. It's something that we would like to do. I think we have 2 or 3 broad markers for it. One is profitability, and I mean PAT. So that'll take us a couple of years. It'll take us a couple of years at least. It could be 2, it could be 5. I'm still not putting a timeline to it. The second is diversification of revenue, because payments, as you can imagine, we process, in fact, now more than 6 billion transactions on a monthly basis. The numbers keep exploding, but the revenues are not like the rest of the world because of the MDR regime. So we want to diversify. We want to allow ourselves a little time for all these new green shoots to take off. Lending should make money, insurance should make money, and so on. So I think once we are healthily diversified and we reach PAT, is when we look to actually go public. For us, it's a milestone. It's not an end goal. That I'm certain of. I think we talk about this all the time with our young employees. Startups should be chasing profitability and sustainable profitability, not an IPO. I think the IPO will come to us.
Yes, an IPO will come if you, in fact, do deliver on profitability and sustainable profitability, as you pointed out. But Anmol, let me ask you, you know, in terms of fundraising at this point in time to fund your expansion plans, and also profitability for you, because operating revenue of 170 crores in FY23, but your net loss has also widened to about 65 crores in FY22. So what does the road ahead look like on both fundraising as well as the road to profitability?
On the profitability side, just in the first half of this year, we have already doubled our revenue from. So the entire last year revenue has we have done more than that in just the first half of this year. So we are doing good on revenue numbers. In terms of losses, also we have compressed the loss percentage from the entire last year to the first half of this year. So we are doing extremely well on that, and I think. Our aim should be
Could you
that
give
in
me the
10
number?
quarters.
Could you give me the number that you've been able to bring the losses down to?
I think we have done by 10 percentage point better, and today we are our cost of our revenue is our cost of service is lower than our revenue. So we have in a way operating break even which we have. So our cost of service is lower than revenue today. So we have still to take care of financing, and we have still to take care of depreciation before we turn profitable. But cost of service is lower than revenue today. So that means there is an operating break even that we have. On the fundraise side, we are doing good. We have had good rounds that have happened in the past, and hopefully in the next few months there will be a good fundraise more, which should happen. So it looks good for us. So we are decently happy with where we are. We have good cash runway available. So happy in the cash position. Happy with how the numbers are shaping up, both on the revenue and the compression of losses.
Anmol, you said you're happy, you're in a decent position on cash as well as revenue, but you are looking at raising additional funds over the next few months. What's the target? How much do you hope to raise? By when do you hope to close that?
So, ma'am, always my belief has been that there is no chest beating on the fact that you've raised large number of money. I think for me, return on capital is much greater than the amount of capital that we have raised. And we would like to be most profitable in the least amount of cash that is possible to. So I think our business requirement is nothing greater than maybe $150 million before we can hit before we can become 3-4 more times the size that we are currently. So I think even if in the next full year we can raise about $150 million, that will be like more than sufficient for us to grow multiple folds from here.
Well, very well said. Fundraising is not about chest thumping. It really is about being able to fund your expansion plans. Sameer, you're in the middle of a huge fundraise at this point in time. Take me through, where that money is going to be used. And more importantly, M&A, is that going to be a focus area for you in 2024? Zest money didn't go through, but 2024, is that going to be something that you're going to be scouting for, a possible M&A?
I think on the M&A side, it's unlikely. One, we've opened up so many different fronts. We just need to hunker down and execute for the next 3 or 4 years on what we've opened up. Second, we've never actually done M&A in a way where we are trying to sort of expand a market in a particular way. None of our investments in the past or acquisitions have ever been in payments, for example. Indus was an exception. We just loved what they were doing on their own. We just felt like they need help on the distribution side, given the fierce competition they were up against. But the rest of them have always been like Welldesk or OpenQ, very small teams, typically like 20 to 50 people max, early stage IP players. There, if we find really good talent that fits into our existing strategy, M&A is always an option, but it's not something we actively look for. I think the fundraise part of it, I'm really happy. We've concluded, made $50 million fundraise, but we concluded in the first half of the year, somewhere around April or May, if I remember correctly. And since then, it's just been launch. I think we have enough of a buffer for all our businesses for the next several years. We are hoping this is enough capital to take us to profitability. If not, it'll be close enough for sure. Payments is at more than break even, and it's helping us actually fund some of our new missions.
Well, gentlemen, we wish you the very best of luck. Congratulations once again on walking away with the top honours at the CNBC-TV18 India Business Leader Awards. We look forward to hearing more from both of you on many of the targets that you've set for yourselves and spoken to us here on the show. Thanks very much once again for joining us, and we wish you the very best. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Young Turks. From all of us here on the team, goodbye. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned. The news continues right after this short break.